Florida, odds are they're not coming to South Carolina. So you have to capitalize when you get those opportunities, and they did.
Absolutely. Speaking of Tennessee and South Carolina, I wonder, because it seems like from the outside, like, fans obviously love to craft their own narratives and spin their own narratives, but do you think there actually is real animosity between Shane Beamer and Josh Heupel?
I don't think they're going to be sharing a meal anytime soon.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, Beamer has not made any comments to me or to anyone that I know of behind the scenes directly about Josh Heupel, but I don't think that either side is particularly fond of the other one, based on what's happened the last couple of years on the field. And, Heupel obviously got the best of Beamer 2 years ago, and then Beamer returned the favor this year. And I know Heupel is going to, try to get back on the right side of things when South Carolina comes to town. I'm sure they've had that game circled, and we'll continue to have it circled based on what happened last year. But I think it's going to be fun to watch the two of those guys as they build the programs. I think they're going to be competing for a long time. Assuming, I think there's very little chance Beamer leaves South Carolina. That's where he wants to be. He's made it very clear it's his dream job. I don't think Heupel would leave Tennessee either, unless just, the NFL maybe came calling or something like that at some point. It was too good to pass up. But odds are they're going to be at their respective programs for a long time. And I think they're going to obviously play each other every year right now. Whether that remains under the SEC news format, I don't know. But I think you're going to see them play a lot, and I think both coaches are off to a good start in building their respective programs.
It really does feel like they've become a fun rivalry here. And I mean, the games are obviously more competitive, because I think a lot of people just assume Kentucky, Tennessee, but those games aren't really, like, Tennessee doesn't sweat Kentucky every year. Like, they are not sweating going into Kentucky next year. It's just, and there's obviously no love lost there between Stoops and Heupel, dating back to the Oklahoma stuff. So when we talk about animosity, I don't think Heupel has any plans to lose to Mark Stoops anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think Stoops is any other coach's favorite guy. He has a tendency to rub guys the wrong way, but he's done a heck of a job at a tough place to win. Football's never going to be the priority at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see if he ends up moving on at some point and gets an opportunity to really show what he's capable of. But that's a team that South Carolina didn't used to sweat Mark Stoops, and then last year they snapped a long losing streak to Kentucky when they beat them. So
yeah,
they need to continue to win that game. I think if they want to have upward mobility in the SEC East, that's a game they have to win as much as possible, obviously. And then Missouri is another team that South Carolina has struggled with a little bit more than people might expect, and they go to Missouri this season, and I think that's another game that they have to start consistently getting the better of.
Yeah, that's another one where I'll just go ahead and say I don't think Heupel has any qualms about dropping 60 at Mizzou this fall. I don't think he's at all concerned about running up the score against Eli and company this year. And it's funny too, because I like Napier. You would think Tennessee, Georgia, or Tennessee, Florida, and I'm like, I don't think there really is a whole lot of animosity with Heupel and Kirby and Napier. I think it's actually the unusual suspects, the Stoops and the Elis of the world, and maybe Beamer. I think Beamer is just more competitive, where I think they enjoy and respect. Like, there is some, like, we'll see what happens with kickoff time, but I want to make a rule where Tennessee's not allowed to play at South Carolina at night. If we're going back every other year or whatever, you can only play at noon or 3:30 on CBS. I'm not doing any more House of Horrors at South Carolina with that place rocking at night. Before the podcast, before the season last year, Tony, I predicted 10-2. Tennessee would split Bama and Georgia. The tape is there forever. And that they would lose at South Carolina, because I was like, this is going to be a night game. Everything's going to feel great because you got beat. You took down one of the big ones, and South Carolina is just going to be sitting there late. I didn't like when that game was played. I didn't like the situation that it might be for them, and I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But when I say that next day here in Knoxville, Tennessee, felt like a bomb went off. It was unlike anything else. I mean, I imagine for South Carolina fans, it was just so euphoric. And on our end, it's like, I don't think we'll ever see those orange helmets again. I think those are goners. Those need to go in the trash can forever. Jeremy Banks obviously not available in that one, and that's always going to be a what if he plays with that defense. But
sure.
Hendon Hooker going down, and then he's going to miss out on the Heisman because of that. And like, there was just so many things where
on the playoffs. I mean, I don't know, not just South Carolina. I don't know of another college football team that made a bigger offensive turnaround in 2 weeks than South Carolina did. They went to the Swamp and were shut out by a frankly horrendous Florida defense.
Yeah.
Shut them out. South Carolina really never scared the end zone in that game. They go to Nashville and win at Vanderbilt in an ugly game the next week, and then just have a complete offensive explosion against Tennessee 2 weeks later that I don't think anyone saw coming. You predicted the win, but I don't think anybody in their right mind could have predicted South Carolina would play offensively the way they did in that game, where Spencer Rattler was just, even his incompletions were perfectly thrown balls. Or either they were thrown away intentionally or they were dropped.
He looked like Aaron Rodgers, like the way he was moving the pocket. It was so crisp. It was a clean ball, and like he was dealing. Like it just. But I will say that some of the revisionist history where it was like that game was over when Hendon Hooker went down. I was like, it wasn't like South Carolina was stopping Tennessee all that often. Tennessee was still moving the ball pretty well. Like it wouldn't have surprised me if that game had gone deep into the fourth, because Tennessee was moving the football, and they were. I wouldn't have predicted them to still come through in the fourth, but it was still enough where I was like, it wouldn't have shocked me if that game would have been a little tricky late if he doesn't go down.
The momentum at one point, and you could feel that it could end up being a close game, but South Carolina got the stops they needed in there and capitalized on them, and won it going away, which I don't think anyone saw that coming.
No, Spencer was like, is that Brandon Turnage over there? All right, we're gonna go to Brandon Turnage again. Is that Deshaun Rucker? All right, we're going to Deshaun Rucker again.
And I don't know that I've seen a guy talk more.
Oh, come on,
and perform, any more poorly than Turnage did in that game. That was unbelievable to watch.
I turned to my wife. I was like, it's over. Like Turnage and Haddon, like they're talking, and they are still. I mean, they're just targeting him over and over again. They saw it, and they were like, there's nothing they can do with them. And they just, I don't know. Haddon right now, it looks like he's going to be a starter coming out of spring.